Welcome back, Camden Catholic. What's up? It's good to see y'all. And this is going to be your very first flip that we have. So just to keep our heads up, remember every time you have a flip, it'll say CP before it, and it'll say flip, and the number of which we're going with, and all you have to do for this bad boy is just take some notes. All right? They need to be decent enough notes, thorough enough that I know that you did this and that you're retaining the information and hitting the important parts, but at the same time, I don't want you to write down absolutely everything, all right? But let's go ahead and get into it, and we're going to start off with just like, what is history? Why we do it? We're going to talk about the two basic time periods, traits of civilizations, and then tomorrow we're going to start getting into the nitty-gritty and all the ancient stuff, okay? So first of all, history is the study of past events, all right? Study of past events in the sense of the culmination, movement of people, movement of cultures, and kind of how these specific events are affecting us in the modern day. Which then brings us to the next question. Why do we study history in the first place? Well, first of all, it's to better understand people and their societies. Why do Americans function the way that we do? Why are our cities set up the way that they are? Why is it that, regionally speaking, from the South, I say y'all, and up in the North, y'all don't? You know, like different things like that to understand different peoples and different groups. Also, we use it to study change, right? Study change and why the current day society exists the way that it does. Change over time is a huge thing. Also, continuity over time. Things actually staying the same. Why did things stay the same in that sense? Why did they change? A lot of different questions that you can ask yourself. But also, purely to be just more informed. If you're more informed, you can understand and engage with media easier. You can do a lot of different things easier, and actually both nationally and on a global scale, okay? But let's keep getting into it. So first of all, we're going to talk about studying the past in general, right? You do not have to write down, oh no, she didn't, all right? So first and foremost, recorded history began about 5,000 years ago with the invention of written records, right? Now, ironically enough, that came after the establishments of some of the early civilizations. However, time before writing we refer to as prehistory, okay? Because we don't have any concrete evidence of it. Now, before written records were used, all of our history and understanding of the historical past was oral history, right? So we're talking stories, art, basic functions of human movement was only just shared in a very, very like simple way. Now, really quickly, jot this down really fast. You don't have to write this question, but write, oral history is not as accurate as written records, all right? We're going to talk about why really quick. Why is it that this is not as accurate as a written record? Anybody want to guess? Very good job. I heard some of y'all over there. Written records are concrete, unchanged, easy to transcribe, easy to move, and they actually are not like embellished or exaggerated as time goes on, right? Written records are concrete. Oral records can easily be changed, right? But let's also get into like some of these people that were recording some of this early history. Early man, right? So first of all, the earliest form of modern day man was believed to have originated from Africa, right? We believe that when men were actually became an evolved form of a hominid, as what they're called, hominids are people, and began to manipulate and create technology, that they actually started that in Africa and then migrated out and then into your areas such as Asia, Europe, Australia even, right? So the North and South America, Bering Strait, not Antarctica so much, there's just penguins there, but you understand what I'm saying. Now, to give you a visual representation of just how long men have been, or not men, excuse me, sorry about that, how long human beings have been a part of this globe in totality, the Earth is 4 billion years old. Humans have only existed for about 100,000 of those years, okay? So 40,000 of those years were what you consider Homo sapiens sapiens, which is what we are, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. If you look at that on a grand scale, if you looked at history as if it were a football field, the only amount of time that is measurable from the goal line to the goal line that is human beings and the history of the planet, it's just the last blade of grass right before the end zone, proportionally speaking anyway. We have only been a part of this world for so much of a time. It has been here way longer than we have. However, when we're talking about anybody that was a part of the era before written records were used, we then have to try and break down history into two different time chunks, right? And when we do that, we're talking about mainly the Paleolithic and the Neolithic. But let's start off with the Paleolithic first. The Paleolithic is from about 2 million BC to circa 10,000 BC, right? Remember we talked about this today in class, before Christ, okay? AD, Anno Domini, meaning in the year of our Lord in Latin. Now, the Paleolithic, if you break the word down itself, it just breaks down into paleo, meaning old, and then lithic, meaning Stone Age. Paleolithic people were nomadic. Nomadic means that they survived by hunting, gathering food, and moving from one place to another, right? Very, very simple concept. You probably learned this in like 3rd grade, okay? So, but let's keep going. So we got paleo, meaning old, lithic, meaning Stone Age, right? So, first of all, Paleolithic people are the earliest forms of humans that we know of that use tools out of stone, bone, or wood, as well as they create fire for cooking, make clothes from animal skins. Very simple, very, very primitive beings. Paleolithic people also, we believe, began to practice primitive forms of religion, exemplified by their careful burying of the dead, okay? So the best question that a lot of y'all are probably asking yourself right now is, well, how did we shift from Paleolithic to Neolithic? What was that transition? What was that turning point? What did it look like? Well, here you go. When prehistory and the Paleolithic era ended, so started this Neolithic period. Also known as, write this down somewhere, anywhere on the outside, put a smiley face next to it or a heart, I don't care. But the event that triggered this change is called the Neolithic Revolution, all right? Going into the Neolithic period, meaning new Stone Age, right? So, what do some of y'all think the invention was that actually made all of this possible? So close for so many of you. But the thing that sparked the Neolithic Revolution was farming. Farming's going to eliminate the need for hunting and gathering. People are going to be able to stay in one place and create actual new civilizations to grow out of them. Speaking of growing, the word you need to write down really, really quickly somewhere on your notes, surplus, all right? A surplus, which is an excess amount of food or supplies used by a civilization. So when farmers began to actually create these surpluses, that was going to open up time for other people to specialize in jobs, to actually create other different aspects of the economy, right? And then a part of the agricultural revolution also, though, a big question you have to ask is, what skills are going to give them ample meat so they don't have to hunt as much anymore? Well, then we're getting into the domestication of animals. There's a phenomenal book about all of this stuff. Parents, if you're watching, or any of you who are actually big-time readers, there's this book called Guns, Germs, and Steels by Jared Diamond. It's a phenomenal book. I'm in the process of rereading it again. I highly, highly recommend it. But he references the domestication of animals as being one of the earliest pinpoint examples of a shift in basic civilizational needs, because early people began to domesticate plants and animals. When I say domesticate plants, I mean like actually make it so you could grow plants for seeds, replant them, and then keep the whole process going, right? So they were made basic and best suited for human use. But the Neolithic Revolution is also going to bring about not the invention, but the creation of villages, towns, in parentheses next to this, put concentration, all right? Concentration. Concentration as in people grouping together to use off of this surplus and things like that, right? That is then going to lead to your growth of civilizations. Villages are going to grow into cities, and cities are going to grow into civilizations. Civilization being used from the Latin words of civis, which means citizen, and civitas, which means city. Early civilizations were settled near a major river or a water source, all right? Floodwater was used, would actually bring silt, which was a soil re-energizing substance that is made out of bits of rock and dirt and mud that actually fertilized the riverbanks, and then they would plant next to them, using that good soil to actually create these surpluses. These conditions are going to give farmers the ability to grow surpluses, and then they could be stored throughout the year, right? So villages grow into these civilizations, and then okay, here we go. So civilizations are going to then be defined by a couple of key factors. First and foremost, that being an organized government, all right, and a complex religious system. Now, funny enough, between these two, really, really quickly, somewhere on the side or wherever nearby, we don't know which one of those came first. A lot of people ask the question, the chicken or the egg, they should be asking what came first, government or religion, right? So, because government can be as primitive as a tribal leader, and it can be as complex as our bureaucratic system in the United States. A religion can be as commonplace as believing in an afterlife, and then it can also be as complex as, say, Buddhism or Christianity, right? So, we don't know, but these are major traits of a civilization: organized government and also a complex religious system. So job specialization is going to begin to grow out of this as well, because if you have a lot of farmers that are actually creating these surpluses, that leaves time for other people to use that surplus, but to also focus on other types of job specialization, creating new social classes and things like that. So an example is an artisan. What an artisan is a skilled craftsman, so like a blacksmith or a carter or a, let me think of another good one, a thresher or a miller, right? Some of you that have the last name Miller, it's due to the fact that your family at one point may have actually been a part of that occupation of milling grain into flour and wheat. So anyway, we're not milling grain into flour, or milling grain into flour, but not milling it into wheat because it starts as wheat and then it's turned into flour. So social classes are also a major trait of civilizations, right? Social classes are one of the things that we don't really know where they came from, but we do know that they are a major trait of every civilization that exists on the entire planet to this day. So what's the difference between the East and the West? Some of you are like, well, what are you talking about? Eastern or Western civilization. Why do you like to call this class Western Civ? I call it the Western civilizations because we'll be focusing primarily on these Western industrialized societies, originating mostly out of Europe, okay? The boundary that separates the East and the West, it's not a physical one. It's a cultural one, all right? Eastern cultures include places that's in Eastern Asia, China, Islamic-driven countries. Western cultures include places like Europe, North America, South America, even Australia, right? So what we're going to do with this, though, tomorrow is we're going to kind of keep comparing these two things against each other, expand off of it, and keep pushing forward, and then we're going to start to begin to talk about the groundwork of civilization, talking about Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Assyrians, the Persians, the Phoenicians, all different kinds of people, all right? But I will see you guys then tomorrow. That's your first flip. Take decent notes. Rewatch it if you need to. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening.